Every customer experience practitioner today needs to think like a business person. That means they need to be growth focused. We are in the business of creating customers and retaining customers. So it is absolutely critical that we're able to prove that when we have strong customer programs, we're either saving our company money or making our company money. And I'm talking about in the contact center. To help you do this, I have partnered with Brian Sander, the head of customer experience for AAA, to create a 43-minute course. And in the course, Brian shows you how he proved that he saved his brand $100 million. Through this 43-minute course, he provides easy to understand and basic strategies that you can apply at your own organization, in addition to a complimentary ROI calculator. To learn more, head over to customerexperienceroi.com or just click on the link below. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I am your host, Blake Morgan, and today our guest is Matt Watkinson. Matt is the author of a couple different books, including Mastering Uncertainty: How Great Founders, Entrepreneurs, and Business Leaders Thrive in an Unpredictable World. He also wrote a book called 10 Principles Behind Great Customer Experiences. Matt is the CEO of a design agency here in Los Angeles called Methodical. He's an Englishman in LA. Today we're talking about mastering uncertainty and how and why that applies to customer experience. Please enjoy Matt Watkinson. Well, Matt, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast, all the way from beautiful Venice Beach. How's your day going?
It's going pretty well so far. Yeah, uneventful, which is about as good as it gets, pretty much.
Exactly, yeah. And it's actually raining in LA today, or at least where I am, not far from you. It's really, really cold.
Yeah, it hasn't got over here yet, but it's definitely clouding over and threatening rain. So far, so good
Yes,
though. It doesn't. I don't mind it once every now and again. You know.
yes, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad to meet you. You've been studying customer experience for a long time, clearly a speaker, advocate, consultant. How did you get started in customer experience?
I began my career designing websites and software, um, mostly for large organizations, either in retail or travel and that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
over time, the challenge moved from how do we have a good website experience, how do we have a good app experience, how do we have a good retail experience, to how do we start to join them together? How do we start to integrate those things into something kind of more cohesive or coherent, where everything was kind of joined up? So that's how I found my way into what today is called customer experience. I came at it from a design angle, specifically having been given the remit by my clients to help them improve these things in the real world, or think through, what those end-to-end interactions looked like for certain use cases or tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as some of the bigger trends that you've seen develop in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, what do you think some of the more exciting advances are in customer experience?
That is a very good question. I would say that the most I'm not really excited necessarily by changes in technology or trends or that kind of thing. I think the thing that's excited me, if I think about when my first book on this came out, which is now 11 years ago through to today, is just the general kind of growing recognition that we need to think about this stuff. We've got to think about who our customers are and what they want. And I actually see that the conversation is changing a little bit now, um, away from just talking about experiences towards the more kind of concrete language of how do we create more value for our customers? Because that's what this is really about. How do we integrate all of the different approaches that we take to creating value for our customers, and how do we think about those um, in a kind of intentional way, for one of a better term. And that's really the thing that excites me. It's the recognition that we've got to do it, and it's the energy to do it, and it's examples of companies doing it well and succeeding as a consequence that kind of excites me more than any particular trends. I'm not interested in omni-channel this or that, or AI or chatbots, or what new stuff people might be measuring, or any of that. That
Hmm.
for me is just instrumental. They're just tools that you have in your toolbox to do the job, but it's more that people want to do the job.
Yes, yes, understood. Well, what are some of the companies that you think are doing a great job, or that stand out in your mind, that differentiate on customer experience and are providing that value that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And all of my examples are kind of weird niche businesses, but ones that have shown that they've kind of got real longevity in this kind of stuff. So, for example, there's a company called Vitsu who make designer furniture, where I literally never had a bad experience with them. I mean, but you would expect them to be good because they make very high value, high priced products. So, but they get a lot of repeat customers. They get a lot of referral customers. They have a lot of customers for life, and you can just tell that from the design of the product through to how they communicate with you, how they market themselves, how they welcome you as a customer, like everything, they've really thought through the fine grained details.
Hmm.
And I think that's where so much of this stuff goes wrong, is like they just don't really get the details right. I've got a product called Eero, which is like a mesh Wi-Fi system for the house,
Hmm.
and they're like, you can just tell that they've really thought about the interactions that the customer's going to have, and how they can make this as easy and straightforward and unobtrusive as they can. Those are the kinds of things that I pick up on. I actually think that a lot of the organizations that we've typically associated with this kind of stuff are in reverse gear, right? So I feel like the Apple experience has degraded substantially in the last 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
Amazon, who were the kind of standard bearer and the most popular case study for all this stuff, are not doing a great job. I think they've choked their beautiful search results page with sponsored listings that makes it harder to find the thing that you're looking for. And as I understand it, there's actually a legal case being brought against Amazon and Bezos now for intentionally customer hostile behavior. Like, you can't. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating and disappointing at the moment how the quality of the interactions that you're getting from a lot of companies, because particularly digitally, so much of it could be so much better. I've just been using my online banking with Citi, for example, and it says we need to verify you to be able to access your bank statements. Would you like a text message, or would you
Right.
like a phone call? So I'm like, well, I have a text message. And I enter the fill code, and every time I request a new statement, it's asking me to verify myself again. I've verified myself 25 times over the course of a single session. Like, that's just appalling
Wow.
design.
Wow.
American Airlines online check-in form, half of the fields that you need to fill in are hidden below the button that you press to confirm it. So you fill out a few fields, you hit the button, and then it throws you a ton of errors. Like, it's just the case that a lot of these companies haven't even bothered to test things before they've shipped them to the customer. And I think it's really disrespectful, and I think it's really commercially idiotic because you just end up having to do the job twice. You just end up having to rebuild it when you could have got it right the first time, you know. So it's a little bit of a frustrating time for me, case study wise. I also think that generally, you know, small businesses do this stuff instinctively. They don't need to be told how to do it. Like my local cafe, local bagel shop, you know, the gym that I go to. Amazing customer experience every single time from all of them, but there ain't anybody there who's a customer experience professional. They just know what to do and they're
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah. What do you think it is that a small business has that a big corporation doesn't have? Why are they able to do this thing so well without even having to call it out or give anybody a title?
I think there are probably several things that contribute to that. I think first is probably skin in the game because if they don't provide a great experience, they're going to get shitty Yelp reviews and they're probably going to be in trouble. The second is a degree of personal pride because it's their business and they want to do a good job. I think the third thing would probably be psychological proximity to the customer. They're literally interacting with them every single day, so they know what they want, they know what they're after, they know how to serve them well, and they see the customers coming back and they see them happy, and they probably know a lot of them by name. I think they also have, they also can make decisions themselves, right? They don't have. I went into a Starbucks at an airport the other day, and I just said, "Could you fill up my water bottle for me?" And a grown woman on the other side of the counter said, "I'm not allowed." Like, you're not
Hmm.
allowed to fill up a bottle. You're a grown woman. Do you mean you can't fill up a water bottle? Right? Like so
Yeah.
many of the poor experiences that we have with large organizations are because people have no discretionary authority or empowerment to actually do things that they would do instinctively in any kind of normal situation, right? They've got bureaucrats and rule makers and process junkies above them with a standard operating procedure that they're brandishing, telling them you can't actually serve your customer. If you see an opportunity to do something great, you're not allowed to pursue it, right? Of course, a small business owner doesn't have any of those problems. They can just do whatever they feel like on the spot,
Hmm.
so understandably, they're a lot more responsive.
Yeah, that's interesting about Starbucks, about they can't fill up your water bottle. I feel like at a certain point, they stopped being able to touch any kind of cup that wasn't a Starbucks cup, maybe because of cleanliness or sanitation. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I mean, the way she made you feel was not very good. It just seems like a small nicety she could have given you. And instead, yeah, you're obviously angry or frustrated.
I would say anger and frustration is the like a fairly minimal reaction. I just feel sorry for somebody who goes to work in a place where they literally can't, at their own discretion, pour water into a bottle. I mean, what does that
Right.
say about the workplace, and what must it be like to be in that kind of environment where you literally just, you're basically being reduced to a piece of machinery, and that's a waste.
Yeah.
That's a waste of it's just a waste on so many levels that I just find it kind of insane that an organization would be run like that, especially in a customer
Yeah.
facing role.
You're right. I think that when contact center agents, especially, or anybody in a customer facing role, they're not allowed to do anything. Yeah, like why are they even there? Why are you putting a human to create a human experience when you're reducing it to a robotic experience? It seems like there's just too many rules that don't make sense.
Yeah, and you do see companies where the opposite is true. I think Ritz Carlton has always been a great example of that, where they've empowered their employees to, at their own discretion, spend money on doing things to make them feel good, and you see it working. I just think that if we empowered people a little bit more, it would make their lives better. It would improve their engagement with their work, and
Hmm.
they'd find themselves better able to serve their customers as well, which is kind of a win-win. But I can't for the life of me understand why that isn't the case.
Well, so let's just look at what you do at Methodical and how you work with clients. Like, what is a project you would be brought in to do?
They fall into a few different camps. So our background um, is still in actually designing things in UX and UI work for large scale websites or applications. So we do a
Hmm.
lot of kind of continuous improvement work with big companies who have a sprawling digital real estate and they want to keep optimizing the user experience, keep improving the content, keep driving up conversion rates. One of the good things about UX UI work is that it's quite straightforward if you're diligent to measure your improvements, right, in terms of revenue or in terms of cost to serve or whatever it might be. So that's a fairly large chunk of our work. We also help companies who are wanting to formulate an approach to customer experience that avoids the pitfalls or traps that a lot of organizations have kind of fallen into over the last decade or more as they've tried to go from theory to practice in terms of how do we actually operationalize this? Like how do we make sure that the money that we're spending generates a return for the business, creates greater value for the customer, and strengthens our brand? Like how do we go about doing that in our particular context? So we do a fair amount of advisory work in that area. We do the full suite of everything else that you'd expect: segmentation and profiling, primary research, end-to-end journey mapping. Yeah, we do pretty much everything that you would expect for a company in our space. But those are the kind of key areas.
Uh-huh. And then, so when you work with a client to operationalize customer experience principles or some of these things, what is one framework or strategy that you do with them, or is it all according to each individual company need?
Well, we've got about 20 years of IP in this area. I've written one book literally on customer experience, one on systems thinking for decision makers, and one on managing and making decisions under uncertainty. There have also been various papers like the Leader's Guide to Customer Experience that talks about how do we actually go about doing this. I wouldn't say that we have a standard method for doing it, but we do see consistent themes or challenges that people haven't really thought about that impedes their effectiveness. So we kind of go in and we try and identify what challenges they might be running into, and then try and put in place plans to kind of mitigate them.
Well, let's talk about your new book about mastering uncertainty. Why did you decide to write this book now, and what are some of the major themes of the book?
Mastering uncertainty was kind of a big, well, was it a big change in direction? I don't know if it was or it wasn't. I mean, in a sense, it's a logical extension from the second book, but it doesn't really have anything to do with customer experience. It was kind of a Kid A moment, if you know Radiohead, like where they just released an album that was totally unlike anything they'd done previously. But I wrote it because I developed a very close relationship with a venture capitalist and investor here in LA, and we were spending a fair amount of time hanging out, going hiking, going for dinner, and that kind of thing. We were comparing, or often talking about business and business decisions and how we would make certain decisions. And it just came to light that we had quite radically different ways of making decisions or trying things out, and that really it came down to our relationship with or understanding of the topic of uncertainty. Right. So he had this much more kind of entrepreneurial investment based mindset, and my mindset, because of my own education and my own working experience, was more grounded in the typical, I guess, what you call mainstream management, professional management, traditional business education. And it was just fascinating to me that he was talking about a lot of concepts or ideas or approaches to decision making that I'd never heard of. And by that point, I'd already written two business books. I'd already read 500. I'd already been appointed as a senior visiting fellow at one of the world's top business schools. Like, how did I not know this stuff? And so I thought, well, I'm finding these insights about uncertainty and risk and decision making extremely valuable. There's a strong chance that other people who are in my position would also benefit from knowing those. So let's just collaborate and write a book on it. So that's how it kind of came about. It was serendipity, really. It certainly wasn't planned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, mastering uncertainty. I mean, this is the key word, uncertainty of this year, because there's just so much stuff happening out of left field all the time. How can businesses grapple with a world that is always uncertain and just nothing seems to be consistent like it was when we were younger?
I think that the starting point would be to, first of all, acknowledge that uncertainty, right? And then, second of all, to do a little bit of soul searching about what assumptions they base their decisions on. Because if you look at most mainstream management processes or approaches to decision making, you realize that they're actually predicated on the assumption that the future is knowable, and that if we just do enough analysis and we just gather enough data and we're just intelligent enough, or if we just have enough intellectual firepower, then we can know what the future is going to hold and align ourselves to it, right? The philosophy is almost the opportunity exists in the market and we just have to excavate it with analysis and data and strategy. But that's not how the world works. It doesn't work like that at all. Opportunities don't lay buried in the market waiting for us to discover them. We have to create them, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have to try things and see if they work. We have to embrace the fact that the future is unknowable and that fundamentally that's a good thing. And that requires pretty major shift intellectually in order to be able to operationalize it and act on it. But that's how entrepreneurs do it. That's how entrepreneurial companies do it. And it's the only approach that works. If you look at our ability to predict the future, realize that we don't really have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think some of the things you've talked about today are just thinking about how we're making our employees feel. Number one, how are we providing value to the customer? Not being so focused on rules that don't make sense anymore, and just really thinking about the customer. You mentioned psychological proximity, which I think a lot of big companies lose. If you had one tip to leave our audience with to achieve better outcomes with these things, what would that one tip be?
I would say stop trying to chase a guaranteed upside and instead ask yourself, what's my downside? And if the downside is acceptable, get on with it. You can do so much better by just saying, what's my downside? Rather than saying, I must achieve this particular outcome in this particular time at this particular cost, which pits you against uncertainty. If you just say, well, there's basically no downside to trying, then your scope of opportunity, whether you're serving a customer, whether you're trying out new ideas for a website, whether you're developing skills in your personal life, whether you're networking or anything like that, your scope of opportunity expands drastically if you start to frame things in terms of acceptable downside rather than guaranteed upside. So I think that's probably the message.
I love that. That's really smart. I like that a lot. All right, well, let's just get to know you a little bit. Are you game to do some rapid fire before we say bye?
Absolutely.
Okay. Number one, what's the most important part of your morning routine?
Probably a gym.
Do you have a unique leadership hack that helped get you to where you are today?
No, I'm making it up as I go along.
What do you do to relax at the end of a hectic day?
I normally just, I'm pretty happy just flopping on the couch and putting some Netflix on or some music or something.
And what Netflix show are you watching right now?
Oh, what was the last show? I just finished Top Boy, which is amazing. God, that just ate all my time.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Wanting what you have.
What is your favorite type of vacation?
I'm not big on vacations.
Yeah, understood. If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Probably my mum. She's been dead for 10 years.
I'm sorry to hear that. Lastly, if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Probably just get it done. Stop pontificating and farting around and just get it done. Whatever it is you need to
I like
do.
it.
There's no prizes for anything other than action,
Other than action?
Yeah,
Yeah,
take
that
action.
makes sense. Well, it's been so nice meeting you, and I just really appreciate you being here. And hopefully, you'll come back another time.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Everybody, you have been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on social media, including LinkedIn, Instagram, and X.